I see a couple more people have joined in the last minute or a couple minutes here. For you folks, we're just waiting a little bit before we get started. My name is Morgan Dolly. I'm the city engineer for North St. Paul. So thank you for connecting to our virtual open house. And we'll get started with a brief presentation here in just a minute or two while some people are still joining at the top of the hour. So thank you again for coming. And we'll get going in just a little bit here. Thank you. Okay, it is 6:04. I think we've waited a little long enough, at least past the top of the hour, for folks that may have been coming in just a little bit late. So thank you for your patience, those of you that came in early. We'll get going straight away here with a presentation. This is the virtual open house for the 2022 street and utility improvements projects within the city of North St. Paul. If you didn't catch my introduction earlier, my name is Morgan Dolly. I am the city engineer for North St. Paul as a consultant working for WSB, the city's engineering firm, and been the city engineer since about 2010. So a little bit of history on past projects and working within the city. I'm pleased to be working on this one on behalf of the city and looking forward to working with all of you as residents as we try to make some improvements to some of our infrastructure and streets around the city. But I think we want to get started with some opening remarks from the city manager, Mr. John Stark. And so I'll turn it over to him for some brief remarks, and then we will launch into some information. And we'll certainly have a lot of time for questions and answers and comments as before we complete the virtual open house here. So John, if you're ready, you can certainly take it away.
All right, thanks, Morgan. Well, I just wanted to give a quick greeting to any residents that might be on the meeting tonight. As Morgan said, I am the new city manager, John Stark. This is my, I think my 8th day on the job, so I'm pretty new. I do feel very fortunate to be joining this team and to helping the community in any way I can. So again, I just wanted to introduce myself, say hi. I have a family commitment tonight, so I'm going to be dropping off the meeting. But City Engineer Morgan Dolly and Public Works Director Ron Ritchie will keep me informed and bring anything to my attention that comes out of the meeting. So again, hi, and thanks for letting me join your community.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John. And 8 days is not a lot of time, but you know, in addition to looking forward to working with the community on these projects, I'm also looking forward to working with you as well too. 2022 is going to be a good year for the city of North St. Paul. And you coming in is going to be a great part of that. So welcome, and thank you for those remarks. I'll go right into the presentation if that's okay with everyone. And you're looking at shared screen here on my computer, which is just a title slide for, as I mentioned, the 2022 Street and Utility Improvement Project. And what, sorry, I'm trying to switch slides and it's a little held up here. I can fix that though, my bad. There we go. There. So some tips for those that might be, doesn't look like we have anybody joining in by phone right now, although that was maybe an option, but certainly if you're on your computer, tips that you might want to be aware of in terms of how to interact with us. We've got a chat function. So usually it's at the bottom of your screen, but there should be a button kind of like what we're showing here on this slide that looks like it says chat and has a little kind of bubble there, like a thought bubble. There's a Q&A on the far right side of that bar. There's a Q&A function. So if you want to ask a question at any point in the meeting, if just while you're thinking about it, just type it in there. We can answer it on the fly, or we might hold it until we get to the end. But certainly, as you're thinking of things, you can type those into the Q&A section. And you can also raise your hand as well too if you'd like to ask a question out loud rather than typing it. You can raise your hand, and we'll once we get to kind of a point where we can break and get your question, over the microphone, we can unmute you to ask your question that way. If you do use the chat, and if you want to introduce yourself, name, address, provide an email address for future email contact, you certainly can do that as well too, and we'll make a record of that. So we appreciate your participation. Just want to make sure that you have those tips and tricks for using Zoom for these virtual open houses, which have they've become the norm here over the last couple of years. Also, just a few things of note, and we'll try to blast out more information along these lines as we get into the construction season. But we have an email that people can use to get in touch with the city and the city staff and project staff, and that is up on your screen here, projects@northstpaul.org. We do ask that you provide some information about your address or what street you live on and name. So if we do need to get in touch with you, we have a phone number or some way to follow up, especially if it's something that we need to get in close contact or have somebody meet you with. And we do have several project areas, as you'll see in the presentation. So it'll be important for us to know when you get in touch with us where you are and what the concern is. And we usually strive to exceed what we say here in terms of like a 24-hour turnaround. But you can call or email 24/7, 7 days a week, anytime, and we will do our best to circle back and get in touch with you as soon as we can. Watch the city's website also for specific notifications that will be pushed out to residents in specific areas as well too. So more information will be coming along those lines. And finally, certainly we have a dedicated phone line. So that number is 651-747-2485. That is our dedicated construction or city project hotline. So we do field that on a regular basis as well too, if you prefer using the phone. So just a real quick overview of what we're going to try to cover here, so we know what we're going to, and these times are approximate. I really don't, we may run through it faster than this potentially. But I'm going to have a brief presentation with some of these slides to kind of go through in a broad sense what the city's efforts are going to entail for working on some of these streets and in some instances underground utilities in and around the city, locations, that sort of thing. We'll close that out with some frequently asked questions. And a lot of times, some of those frequently asked questions do cover the typical things that people might be thinking of while I'm giving the presentation. And so you might want to hang on to your question until we get through that section, because I might potentially answer it with some of the kind of canned questions and pre-prepared questions that we have as a part of the slides and answers as well too. And then we'll open it up for kind of a open forum Q&A. People can make comments. If we specifically want to hear from you, if you have experience or a concern, you've lived on these streets for years and years and years. You have the eyes and ears on things that are of concern or specific things that I want to encourage everyone to, call out things that you think that if there's an opportunity for us to fix it, we want to know about it. We also want to know if you have, special things that we need to be aware of during the construction process. And those could be ranging from having an underground buried dog fence or underground sprinkler or irrigation system that we need to be aware of. It could also mean that you might have some special needs with respect to transportation, access for metro mobility. Maybe you have elderly relatives staying with you that needs to get in and out to the doctor on a specific day. All those types of things we can make accommodations for, especially if we know them ahead of time. If you're not comfortable sharing that in this forum, that's totally okay. You can use kind of that hotline or email to reach out and get in touch with us and project staff and share those kind of special needs or concerns separately. And we'll coordinate with you ahead of time on those items. And then we have a little video, which is kind of fun. If you don't have to stick around for that, but that's a video that was actually created by a different city, but it's a good kind of entertaining way to close out the meeting in terms of showing some of the things that you might expect to see on a typical construction project. So that's about 5 minutes long, and we'll share that at the very end, only after we've kind of covered or tried to get through everyone's questions on the project. So with that, let me go into the different locations that we're looking at this year for improvements. And so these were all considered by the city council last fall, while the city council was looking at budgets, looking at some of the needs and things that were identified within the capital improvement plan for upcoming repair and improvement. And the map that's shown here identifies 3 different areas. So we're in no particular order calling, or priority, we're calling them just area 1, area 2, and area 3. So area 1 is more downtown, and that's specific to the area kind of south of 7th Avenue that is in and around the area of the city surface parking lot that is behind the old K&J Catering there on the corner of Margaret and 7th Avenue. So the blue highlight there is, it's kind of hard to read because it's small, but it's basically including reconstruction of the parking lot itself. There's that short little stub or spur of 6th Avenue that goes out east from the parking lot and connects with Charles Street. And then the alley that is adjacent to the parking lot on the north side behind the buildings that front on 7th Avenue. And then also Charles Street itself from 7th Avenue south down to 4th Avenue. So those are the general streets and areas that we're going to work on in area 1. In area 2, it's a little misleading because that North High Service Road that loops around the high school, that's all around North High School, if you're familiar with that area. It is showing a highlight on First Street, but that's actually only going to be some sewer lining. Really, the most intense action that you're going to see by the city is going to be focused on that section of 10th Avenue between 2nd and 3rd Street, and then 2nd Street itself, and then 3rd Street itself. And coincidentally, separately now, the high school is actually going to be, ISD 622 is embarking on an addition or an improvement to the high school campus, which is actually going to be starting this year. It's going to be a 2-year project. So they're working internal to the school area, and then the city has some issues with its streets and its water main in and around there. So we wanted to get that taken care of all at the same time, so it doesn't become a liability moving forward after the high school makes its improvements, so we don't have things like water main breaks happening in and around kind of all the new investment that the school district is making in the high school. So that's area 2. Area 3 is, you can see Ariel Street North between the cul-de-sac, which is south of 11th Avenue, all the way north up to 17th Avenue. So that would be an improvement to the road there on Ariel itself. Now, Ariel just is actually owned 50-50 with the city of Maplewood. So the city limits, or the city boundary, goes right down the center line of the roadway. So we're actually doing that improvement jointly with the city of Maplewood And for those of you that live in and around Ariel Street, the contracting agency will actually be the city of Maplewood just for that street, just for Ariel Street. But we'll be in close contact with them, and we're going to coordinate public engagement with the city of Maplewood as well too. So I think they're holding their own public engagement meetings with their own residents, similar to what we're doing here. But for those of you that are up and down Ariel Street, that's just something to keep tabs on, that there might be some joint communication between North St. Paul and Maplewood as we get into improving that street. But then also there's some other roadways that extend out to the east that have been identified for improvements, and that's Flanders Road, 13th Avenue, all the way from Ariel to McKnight, and then that piece of 14th Avenue cul-de-sac to cul-de-sac, and the short little connector piece there, Spirit Hills Lane, just north of 13th. So I kind of went through the streets, just a brief covering of the improvements here. I talked a little bit about this, but in area 1, specific to the parking lot, we want to replace or reclaim all of the existing old asphalt and repave it. We've got some concrete curb and gutter that is past its lifespan and needs to be replaced. We'll be taking care of that. Obviously, we're going to be restriping the parking lot. Now we do have an update to kind of the configuration. It's not significantly different to what we are used to seeing out there today, but it does actually add some spots. So we've kind of maximized the area within the parking lot to try to add some parking into it, redoing some of the islands. The city electric department will be redoing the parking lot lighting as well too, and installing some electric vehicle charging stations in the, I believe they're focused on the west side of the lot, kind of similar to, or kind of towards the Margaret Street side. And then on, and that also, so we're going to be reclaiming the pavement in the parking lot and 6th Avenue, that short little piece I mentioned earlier. And on Charles Street, it's pretty minor improvement, but we have been doing that throughout the city, and it's called a maintenance overlay. So it doesn't take a very long time. But it is something where we kind of grind off the first 1.5 or 2 inches of asphalt and then come back and repave that top piece. That basically extends the life of the roadway further so that we don't have to reconstruct it any earlier than we absolutely have to. So it's not as expensive as a full reconstruction, but it does give us some added life. And so we've been doing that in some strategic places throughout the city, and it's worked really well as kind of a very cost-effective approach of making improvements to our roadways and extending their life. So that's going to happen on Charles, as I said, in that piece between 7th and 4th Avenue. As far as underground work, I mentioned there will be some electrical work. So some of that is certainly underground. But also we have some drainage issues within the parking lot itself. And so mostly pointed within the parking lot from a drainage standpoint, we do have some storm sewer that we're going to be reconfiguring and reconstructing. And basically when we do that, when we actually make improvements to the drainage, usually that helps make our pavements and our roads and our parking lots last even longer than they did the first time. So that's kind of the intent, to improve some of the drainage so that we really maximize the benefit from the significant dollar investment that the city is making in improving these things like our streets and our parking lots. So that's area 1. Within area 2, very similar. We're going to be replacing some curb and gutter, reclaiming the street pavement. We do have some sidewalk repair in that area to do. There's also not a significant amount of widening, but a minor widening on 10th Avenue. For those familiar with that area, there's some on-street parking on the north side of the roadway. And it's actually kind of difficult for Public Works to plow that road in the winter. So on the south side, where it's actually kind of the fields on that side, there's nobody's front yard is there. We're just going to move the curb over a few feet to provide a little bit extra space so that it's easier for Public Works to remove snow on that section there. And we have a history of water main breaks, so we will be replacing the water main and the services on 2nd, 10th, and 3rd. And then also doing some drainage improvements. We've got some standing water, kind of at least the most significant place that I'm familiar with is the corner of 10th Avenue and 3rd Street. So we'll be adding and reconstructing again some storm sewer to pick up some of that drainage, which, as I mentioned, will actually make a big difference in terms of making our roads last longer if they're not holding water, bird baths after a rain event. That's ideal if we can take care of those drainage issues at the time that we do these types of projects. And in area 3, I mentioned the partnership with Maplewood on Ariel Street. So Ariel is going to be, again, reclaimed. So it's not a full reconstruction, but we do grind all the way through the pavement in that kind of a scenario. And we keep most of the curb and gutter, but where we do have failed or settled sections, we'll pull that out and replace that. Flanders Road is actually failed, and so we do need to reconstruct that. It's past the point of being able to overlay or reclaim. So we'll be doing that road, but it doesn't have curb and gutter right now. So we don't have any plans to actually do any significant changes to the character of the road. We're not widening it, but we will actually get there and fully replace it from top to bottom, which will be a good improvement from what it is now. And 13th Avenue, 14th Avenue, and Spirit Hills will be more similar to Ariel, where it's a combination of mill and overlay and a little bit of reclamation, depending on how bad the road is in those areas. As far as underground work, again, we do have some water main on Ariel, but only south of 11th Avenue. So again, that's a section where we have a bad history of water main breaks. So we want to replace that water main between 11th Avenue and the dead end just north of Highway 36. And again, if we might have some storm sewer repairs where we have some failed casting, failed structures, and some drainage improvements to be able to make. So similar to those other areas there as well too, from a drainage standpoint. So now, breaking the action. I know you guys are probably all really bored with the stuff that I'm running through, but important to show you kind of what is happening and where. We've got a poll. Now, there has been some discussion, if you live on Ariel Street, there's been some discussion about a sidewalk connection between 11th Avenue on the south end and 17th Avenue on the north end. So there is east-west sidewalk on 11th Avenue currently. There's east-west sidewalk on 17th Avenue currently. Maplewood is actually, I think they have some sidewalk on 11th Avenue moving west, and they're actually talking about, they have proposed adding sidewalk on the north side of 11th Avenue with this joint project for the things that they're doing on their side of the border. So the idea has come up. We want to use these public engagement and neighborhood virtual open house opportunities to hear from the residents, just to get an idea of what you think. Now, that doesn't mean that, this isn't a set decision, just depending on how people give us their opinion. It's really up to the city council, but we want to share with the city council what we hear from you tonight. So we have a poll set up, and Carrie has put that on the screen. Do I need to stop sharing, or can people see this window that popped up here that says, if you live on Ariel Street, would you want a sidewalk on the east side of the street? Yes, no, indifferent, or I do not live on Ariel Street. Can everybody see that? The participants, are they able to click on that?
Yes, we're getting responses, Morgan.
We are. Okay, excellent. I just didn't know. It popped up on my screen. Obviously, I'm not going to take the poll, but if we're getting responses, great. Carrie, maybe you can let me know. I've been talking long enough. It shouldn't take that long to get some responses. Let me know maybe when it's done.
78% of our participants have voted, and so far, none of them live on Ariel Street.
Oh, okay. Well, you can only ask, so that's okay, and we'll certainly share whatever. Even if you don't live on Ariel Street, we'll share that with City Council as well too.
The Ariel residents are chiming in now.
Okay, good. I saw
Morgan,
a question in the chat. Is that what you were going to say, Veronica?
Yep, Karen lives off Ariel and she's having trouble responding. So she responded in the chat rather than the poll.
Okay, and that's fine. And so Veronica, if Veronica is one of our project engineers for the team, and Veronica, if you could make a note that we have someone that is in the area, doesn't live on Ariel, but does have a I don't know how you want to say it, that they would like, they would use certainly, or would like a sidewalk if it was installed off Ariel there. And I see there's even a couple more people. Okay. Do we think potentially we have all
I
the
think we're
responses?
good. We haven't had responses for quite a while now.
Okay, good. So thank you so much, you guys, for being engaged and participating. We had some people type some things into the chat, and that's great. I'm going to ask one more kind of follow-up question. And I know maybe we don't have a lot of people who live on Ariel Street, but I think it's really important that we do hear from them on this. Currently, the city ordinance with respect to sidewalks does say that a sidewalk snow removal in the winter is the responsibility of the homeowner. Okay, and so on past projects and when we have had these conversations, that topic has gotten some discussion. You know, and I think it's fair to ask the question that if you are against removing snow on a sidewalk, does that change your opinion? And so I think the question is, if you live on Ariel Street and you do not want a sidewalk, if the snow removal was not a factor, would that change your opinion? So I'd love to hear if there's anyone in the audience on Ariel. Now, obviously, if you don't live on Ariel, you can't really weigh in with respect to shoveling snow on a piece of sidewalk that might be on someone else, in front of someone else's house. But if we can get any input on that, I'd appreciate it. If not, that's okay. We can certainly have that conversation with City Council anyway. But I just wanted to be transparent and let people know what the city ordinance says. And again, we'll have that conversation with City Council. Okay, maybe I'll just keep moving. Carrie, okay with you if I keep moving along with the presentation?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Let me get back to my right window here. There we go. So just a comment in terms of how we would proceed with this work. So we obviously this is broken up into different pieces. We are planning to put this project out to bid for contractors to bid on in this spring time frame. So we'll have more concrete information for the public in terms of when is it going to start, what does the schedule look like, what areas will they be working on first, and then where will they move on after that, for example. But we don't have that information right now. But what I can tell you is that we always make it a requirement of the contractor to do it in an orderly and timely fashion. And when they work in one area, they'll progress in that area and then move on to the next area. We don't want them to start doing things piecemeal and have it spread out all across the city. And then, you might see some work and then you have to wait in your neighborhood for weeks and weeks and weeks before you see anything happen. Now, things do jump around and there might be some delays or, some times where the contractor is not working exactly on your street, but we generally want them to get into an area, work on that area, generally finish it or get it close to completion, and then move on to another area. There are some things like cleanup and restoration, maybe some landscaping or landscaping repair. Some of those things get held off to the very end so that they can kind of do those for the whole project all at the same time. But for the most disturbance of work, like some of the roadway work or the underground work or the utility work, we want them to kind of make sure that they're focused in an area and then they move along so it doesn't drag out any longer than it needs to. We understand that you guys are living your lives in these neighborhoods. You have things like, graduation parties and people visiting, and you've got lives to live, right? So we try to be sensitive to that to the extent that we can. But we do know that, it might be, there might be things happening in different areas of the city at the same time, and that's okay. We tend to get our best value out of the contractor if we do allow them some flexibility, meaning that it saves the city money if we're not too restrictive with the contractor. And as I said before, once we get more detailed information, which likely won't be until maybe April or May, right before we probably get started with construction. But when we do have that information, we will communicate that out again to all of the people that live in and around the streets there that we're going to be working on. As I mentioned, May is kind of our target start. It's usually weather dependent, depends on how late our winter goes. Usually kind of a safe general bet is we can start construction around mid-May. May 15th is usually a good bet, but sometimes weather holds off and we have to do it a little bit later. Sometimes we get lucky and we can start earlier. Very rarely do we start in the month of April, but it could happen. Again, May is usually our best anticipation for a start date for construction. And as I mentioned, it probably won't start everywhere at the same time. We'll try to give more information about where the contractor might start in May. And then if we can have a general sense where they're going to be moving from location to location as we get through the project. Again, those are all going to be things that you'll want to be keeping tabs for updates to be blasted out by the city as we move through the project. And we do expect that for all these different areas, it'll take most of the construction season, not fully, disrupted the whole time in every single area, but they'll be wrapping up on the project in the fall of 2022, usually no later than Thanksgiving. Generally, we'd like to see them finished in October. There might be some minor things that they're wrapping up into November. But again, we'll provide more detail once we get the contractor's schedule from them in the spring. And then there's always some final completion work. So that final paving of asphalt happens in the spring the following year if we're in an area where we did utility work. And if there's, again, some minor restoration or things that we need to attend to, we usually have that spring the following year to be able to do some minor things here and there to final that project out. As that caveat at the bottom of the slide says, I have to say this, weather plays a huge factor in changing things. And so we ask for all of your patience in understanding that sometimes things do change. Sometimes they change down to the week and even the day. And that's when we try to use our communication channels to keep people as posted as best as we can understand, and as the contractor can understand. But generally, our number one priority is to try to get it done safely. And then next, we try to get it done as quickly and efficiently as we possibly can. So I'm going to talk about some frequently asked questions here. These are things that most people just have general questions on that we would talk about at a regular open house. And so what work is proposed? I mean, really the city of North St. Paul, since about 2012 is when the conversation started. And then 2013, the city's first kind of regular capital and streets improvement program was adopted by the city council. And since then, the city has had a fairly regular and consistent emphasis on making improvements to aging infrastructure throughout the city, basically to keep up on things so that they don't get so bad that they're really not maintainable anymore. We certainly still have streets that have potholes that need to be filled and fixed on a regular basis, and Public Works does an amazing job staying on top of that stuff. But in terms of doing these types of projects, really the idea is to provide everybody with safer and smoother and more structural roadway, and also in this case, a public parking lot. We also want to make sure that we're spending dollars on things that will make those street investments last longer. So we know that if we improve the drainage, as I mentioned, or we improve the utilities, it's only going to make make it that many more years before we have to come back and do anything for these streets. So our hope is that as we fully reconstruct the streets, that we're getting 50, 60, 70 years out of them. Some of these other improvements, as I mentioned, like a maintenance overlay, that's not necessarily a 60 or 70-year fix, but that will probably give us at least another 10 or 15 and maybe even 20 years if we're lucky, depending on the street and different factors like the weather and the soils that are underneath. So we understand, there's no way to sugarcoat construction on the street that you live in. It is inconvenient. It can be dusty, it can be noisy. We try to minimize those things as best we can, but really, once we get through it, there are some really great things that happen on the streets when it's done. In my experience, you tend to see neighborhoods kind of do a little bit of a turnaround where people, after the streets are done by the city, the next year, people might be looking at painting their houses or doing some landscaping or maybe replacing a roof or something that they've been putting off for some time. And it really, it makes a big difference in these neighborhoods, I think, when the city makes these sorts of investments. So we understand that it's tough sometimes through construction, but we ask for your patience, just communication back and forth, letting us know what the problems are or what we need to try to help you with. We're always going to try to do our best with running to those issues and fixing them to the best of our ability. We can't fix everything and we can't make everybody promises, but we're going to all try to work together to try to make these happen as easy as they possibly can happen and get through it to the other side after the construction project. The next question is, how much notice will you be given on the schedule? We've got through our communications director a lot of different avenues for communication that will be available to residents. We're actually even adding a new platform, a new communications platform, which is not just for construction projects, but will allow the city to provide targeted information to specific neighborhoods and streets and areas. And we're going to use that for these construction projects. It's also going to be for things like getting in touch with people if there's information that we need to share with respect to utilities or utility shutdown for a water main break or trash collection information, right? That sort of thing. So please stay tuned for more information. Obviously, sending out a hard letter in the US mail is going to be kind of our initial slowest way to get a hold of people. But we're going to encourage people to, I don't know what the process will be, either signing up or registering in some fashion for these communication updates. And we'll do as robust as possible a methodology of communicating with people as we possibly can, using as many different tools as we possibly can. So stay tuned for that. I will tell you that depending on the project and depending on the activity, in some instances, it may not be necessary on this project because we don't have a lot of full reconstruction with utilities, but in some instances, we might be giving daily updates. So as far as answering the question, how much notice, if we need to tell people that there might be something happening in a specific area, like a water shutdown or something specific in an area, we might have to do it on a daily basis. At a minimum, typically week over week, we're telling people what work we've completed that week in a specific area and maybe what work we're anticipating happening the following week, so people can follow along with the progress for construction. Will I have access to my driveway? So generally, you will have access to your driveway for most of the construction project. What the contractor is told that they need to do is at any given time, people need to be able to get in and out of their driveways at the beginning of the day, like if you're going to work, and they need to get into their driveways at the end of the day, like if you're coming home from work. So that's generally the target that we're given the contractor to be able to live up to. What that means is that, if they do need to do some digging or some excavation in front of any home or any driveway, they'll need to make sure that they're letting people know when that is going to occur. And maybe you might not be able to get in and out of your driveway just for that one day or that one specific time where they're doing that work on that underground utility or something right there. Generally, they're able to fill that back in, and it might be a gravel surface or an unpaved surface, but it should be traversable by people to get up and down the road and in and out. Certainly, emergency services is made well aware of what we're doing and when. And the contractor is always ready at a moment's notice to be able to fill a hole in if they need to in an emergency, and make sure that people or emergency vehicles can get through if that's something that needs to happen. They know that that's the plan and the program if something is going on. And I just want people to know that that's what we expect of the contractor. The other kind of access to driveway issue that occurs is if we do need to replace the concrete curb or the concrete driveway apron that is right in front of your, like that portion that is the interface between the road and your driveway, that new concrete does need to cure. And we, at a minimum, we can't have cars driving over that for about 5 days while that concrete gets stronger and stronger and stronger. It actually takes concrete 28 days to reach full strength, but we can get a car over it, or at least a regular residential vehicle, maybe not heavy traffic, but we can get a car over it after about 5 days. So there might be a time period if we have to do concrete work, and we would be talking to the residents about this ahead of time, where if we need to do that in your driveway, we would let you know, and you might need to park out on the street for that period so you're not trapped in your driveway, right? So we'll give you an opportunity to get out of your driveway, park on the street, we'll pour the concrete, we'll let that cure, and then once it's cured, then you can get in and out even though it's new concrete. So that's generally what to expect for access on your driveway. Another question that we get is, can entire driveways be replaced as a part of the project? So a lot of people may have been thinking about replacing their driveway, whether it's concrete or whether it's asphalt. And a lot of times it does make sense to think about doing that with the project. Now, we don't do that. So the city doesn't replace the private driveways. And what we do is if we do need to disturb the very end of it, we'll replace that section that needs to be replaced in kind with whatever material you have out there now. But we won't go all the way back to the garage. And we'll go to kind of the most logical place that we can. We'll make a nice, smooth, clean joint. And if you have an asphalt driveway, we'll provide kind of an asphalt connection there for that last little section. If you have a concrete driveway, we'll provide a new concrete section in the part that we need to remove and replace. There's not many gravel driveways around, but if there was a gravel surface there, we certainly could replace that with gravel as well too. Now, the total cost of replacing the full driveway certainly would be up to the homeowner, and it's really up to the contractor and the homeowner to reach an arrangement with the city's contractor if they are willing to do that. We will provide the contact information to all the residents for the contractors, whether it's concrete or asphalt, if the contractor tells us that they're willing to take on some private driveway work. Sometimes they are not interested in doing that because maybe they just want to focus on working for the city and not on individual residents or individual driveways. That does happen now and again. We can't force that or control that. But what I will say is that usually driveway contractors, whether or not the city's contractor is willing to do it or not, they tend to actually kind of canvass the neighborhoods and let people know that they might have discounts or neighborhood discounts if they do several driveways in and around the area. What we will do, if you do, or you and your neighbors actually do try to figure out if you want to do that, our hope is that you will wait until we're done so that you can do your driveway work after we're done, and certainly let our project people and our project inspectors know that that's kind of what your plan is, so that we can make sure that our contractor knows and we can all be working together. Again, also from a permitting standpoint, I should remind anyone that is thinking about that there is a permit required at City Hall for replacing your driveway. And so you would need to have that permit actually issued by the city before you could do your contractor could do your driveway. And if you have any questions on that, again, as we get closer into construction, I encourage you to reach out to our project representatives and we'll try to help you through the process as well. I mentioned already that we'll just kind of replace that end section as much as only what we need to disturb as a part of the project. Sometimes it's only a couple feet. Sometimes at the most, it's maybe 10 or 15 feet, depending on a few different factors like the slopes and whether or not there might be a water service that needs to be replaced in the driveway. A lot of times we get questions about where the right of way is, and a right of way is basically that section of land that the city has the rights to be able to do things like have a city street or have underground utilities, or could be power poles or street signs or things that are owned by the city, owned by that are, you know, public infrastructure, if you will. And generally, that is where your private property ends and where the public right of way begins. And it's not always right with the edge of the street. Usually the right of way or the rights of way within the city are about 60 feet wide. And on a typical street, what that means is that probably about 10 to 13, maybe 13 feet behind the curb or behind the edge of the road, that section of grass that, yes, you guys do mow that and you do maintain that, but that section of 10 or 13 feet or so between the edge of your private property and the edge of the road, that is all a part of the right of way. And I only point that out because that's the area that we will tend to only need to work in. And for these types of projects, if we do need to do anything over the line, our inspector and our construction observer will talk to individual property owners about a right of entry. Like if we need to provide you with temporary water service or something like that, or work a little bit further inside or beyond the line there for a driveway replacement, again, we'll work with you on a property by property and owner by owner basis. Mail is always a big question in terms of how will I be able to pick that up? How will my garbage service also be affected? We have to check with the post office. All of mail is the way that mail is handled in North St. Paul is up to the postmaster at the post office in North St. Paul. In some instances, we may need to post temporary mailboxes on an adjacent street, and we'll tell everybody where that will be. And that, again, is dictated to us by the post office. In most instances where it's home delivery, and you guys don't, if you don't have mailboxes, you likely won't be affected. And usually the mail delivery person will be able to keep doing home delivery, even if the street is under reconstruction. But that's something that we'll need to communicate ahead of time and provide that information street by street, neighborhood by neighborhood. And we won't get that information similar to the schedule until that April-May timeframe, right before we start construction. So we'll provide more information on that. And so potentially be prepared for temporary mailboxes in another location. And trash pickup should be the same as what you're used to. The contractor will actually move the trash bins from the end of your driveway to another location if that other location has to be established by the trash hauler. And then the contractor will be responsible for moving your trash container back. We may ask you to put a piece of tape or other identifier on your trash bin with your address, just so we can make sure that people get their trash bins back to the right address. Again, that would be the responsibility of the contractor. Working hours will be between 7 and 7 Monday through Friday. That's by city ordinance. And on Saturdays, which is not a guarantee, they have the ability, but a lot of times they don't work on Saturdays, but the working hours are between 9 and 5. And no work is allowed on Sundays or holidays unless they have special kind of permission from the council. I don't expect that we'll be getting into that at all. So I think those hours are what we'll probably be expecting to see on these projects. And let's see, lawns and areas with grass that are disturbed. Most lawns on this project are probably not going to be disturbed. If at all, it's only going to be maybe a few feet behind the curb, where the curb is going to be replaced. But we want everybody to be aware that the contractor is responsible for that sod or if it is seeding, if it's a very small area, for the first 30 days. And then after that, it's the homeowner's responsibility. So we'll provide more information with respect to grass removal and replacement as we go through the project and the process. But just know that if it's a maintained lawn, we're going to do our best to put it back the way it was before you started. But new grass and new sod, it does look different. The greens don't always match. It takes a little while, sometimes a couple of growing seasons for it to all blend together, but we'll do our best and provide some tips and tricks in terms of how to take care of that new grass. As I mentioned, lawn irrigation systems, underground dog fences, and landscaping items. Those are all going to be things that we want to hopefully know about ahead of time as best as you can communicate them to us, and we'll try to protect those. If we do need to disturb them, or if they accidentally get damaged during construction, which does happen, we have allowances within the construction contract to have those repaired at no expense to you. So if something happens, please let us know. Better yet, before we even start the project, if you have one of those types of things, special landscaping or underground sprinkler system, for example, let us know again on the hotline. And also, if you do have things that are close to the road, like a bed of hostas or some flowers, or a special, I don't know, landscape feature, wagon wheel or something like that, and you want to kind of take control of that and get that out of the way, certainly please do. We do our best to kind of restore things, and we do have the ability to do some restoration with respect to landscaping, hostas, simple things like that. But if there's something that you think is really important, we have had residents go in there kind of before the start of the project and maybe transplant some things or pot some things, and then they bring them back. If they've got a green thumb, I think they appreciate that opportunity. So I certainly encourage you to do that sort of thing if you would like to, and if you need more information about timing, you can always reach out on the hotline for more information as we get closer. Special deliveries, weddings, graduation parties, garage sales. We have worked with all of those things. We just ask that you let us know about them ahead of time. Just because you're on a construction project doesn't mean you have to not do those things. Obviously, the street will be under construction, but if we know about it ahead of time, we can try to work with you and work with the contractor and make sure that to the greatest extent possible that you guys can go about your lives and have those special events. If you're going through a home remodel too, that's another good thing for us to know about, because you might have contractors visiting your property in and out for different types of things. So that would be another thing we would want you to communicate to us as well. We get questions on where you're going to store things. Most of the things will be temporarily stored within the city right of way, so kind of on that edge of road area. Rarely do we have things that are like a backhoe or a piece of equipment that might be on the side of a road during a construction project. That might happen occasionally, but usually not long term. We definitely do not use people's private property or want to block anyone's access. So we will make sure that the contractor does not block anything or get on anybody's private property with what they're doing. Most of it's going to be, all of it will be within that right of way in the roadway or in that area just adjacent on either side of the roadway. Sometimes people ask about the grade of the road, meaning like how high the road is or how low the road is. Will we be changing that? On this type of project, no, we're approximately going to be matching all of the existing elevations out there to basically minimize the impacts that people might see out there. There might be minor changes, and by minor I mean within a few inches, and that is usually because we're trying to improve the drainage out there. But generally, we are putting everything back pretty much from a height standpoint and also a horizontal standpoint, very close to where it is today. If we do make improvements, it's going to be, as I mentioned, on 10th Avenue there, where Public Works has a hard time plowing. So we're moving the curb line there. But that's really kind of the only one that I can think of. Most of the other kind of edge of road things will be about the same, and most of the heights and elevations and grades of the roads will be about the same, unless we're trying to fix a drainage situation. So I think that's the last slide. I know I went a little bit long there. We got a little bit of time, and I will stay as long as I need to answer any questions that we might have. We've got certainly plenty of people in attendance. So if anyone would like to type in the Q&A section a specific question that they have, or hit the raise hand button, we can unmute your microphone and try to answer your questions that way.
Hey,
Morgan,
Morgan.
I have some
Yeah.
people with their hands raised. I'm gonna unmute them one by one.
Okay, you want to start with Bruce maybe at the top? He's at the top on my list anyway.
And there is also a question in the chat. There are two.
Okay, we will definitely get everyone's questions answered. Bruce, I think you're unmuted. Do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I've got a couple of just real quick ones. During this last construction season, we had all the gas lines put in our yard. We are in area 1. My wife and I are the only driveway, residential driveway on 6th Avenue. So we're going to be basically the only ones affected, massively affected by the area 1 on 6th Avenue East.
Yep, got it. Yep, I know exactly where your house is.
Yep. When they came in and painted all the lines and put in all the flags, and when they got all done with marking all the lines, I told them, well, you missed one. And they said, absolutely, we couldn't have missed one. And I said, well, there's a sump line 6 inches in from the curb all the way up the street here that the city put in about 20 years ago. And he said, well, how would you know? I said, because I've lived here 40 years. He said, well, there couldn't be one here. There's absolutely not one here. So they came in with the backhoe and promptly cut the PVC in half.
So is that like, are you talking about like edge of road drain tile? Is that kind of
Yeah,
what
there's
it
an
was?
edge of road drain tile there for all of the sump lines for myself, the neighbors either way.
For the sump pumps,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay, and then did the city put that in, or was
Yeah,
that
the
some
city
other
put that
kind of?
in about 15, 20 years ago.
Okay. And that's on the south side of south side of 6th?
6th Avenue, yes. So, and I asked them, are you going to ask the city to put that back on their plans? Because he looked at all of his prints and he said, well, it is not here. So the city could not have put it in. And I asked, do you think all of us residents got together and dug it in underneath all of this?
Well, yeah, that's funny. I mean, I'll tell you, in any older city like North St. Paul, it's not uncommon that there's undocumented or even, things that are shown on our prints and our plans in one place. And then when we start excavating and actually finding them, they're in another place. So, that's exactly the kind of information that is really helpful to us. I don't know if they repaired it back then.
Yeah, I stood there and made him repair it.
They did repair it. Okay.
Door
So
bolt.
yeah, so basically I think what I'll do, not to like take up too much time right now, but what is Gage on the line here, and Gage and Veronica are my project and design engineers. So I just want to get confirmation that they're making a note of this, and we can make notes on our plan, even if we don't, exactly locate it, we can make it so that the contractor is aware that it is there.
Yeah, 'cause I know when you pull
And
the curb, that is going to be a
yeah, yep.
an issue.
And
then
yeah,
well, just the other quick one is because we are partially handicapped, and I just with the driveway being pulled, and you're going to be pulling the entire roadway, and and with the curbing, that's going to have some effect for us. So I just wanted to make sure that we're not going to have that big really that big of an issue for us for getting access.
yeah, no, that's good to know. As long as usually with most folks in your situation, if they can get in and out of their driveway with their vehicle, they're okay. And now the times that we'll just need to work with you to figure out what's the best situation is, if we do need to have that concrete cure through your driveway, or there is a time where you need to park on the street. So we've been successful in the past. I think that's something that we'll have to coordinate with you one-on-one, like with our construction representative when they're out there. But I'm making a note right now, and I would encourage you to also continue to stay in touch with us once the project kicks off, and we can actually meet with you one-on-one with our construction person as well too, to try to figure these things out.
Most of the city knows us quite well. We're some of the directors of the car show, so.
Oh, okay. Well, great.
Knows
I
us very well.
Yeah, I just had a meeting with Bob from the car show today, so we're talking to those guys as well. Okay, well, thank you, Bruce. I appreciate that stuff, and we're making notes. I'm making notes, and Gage and Veronica are making notes. We got some good stuff on the Q&A. I think maybe we can do another verbal question. Carrie, can we go to Stephanie B, who has her hand up as well too?
Hi, this is Stephanie. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks, Stephanie,
Hi.
for coming.
Great. Thank you, Morgan, and everyone from the city of North St. Paul for all your work on this and your strong communication. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible and let you know just some thoughts that I have as it relates to Area 2. And maybe there's some other things that we would need to follow up with kind of offline, because I want everyone to have a chance with their questions and things tonight. So
Sure.
Obviously we're super excited about I'm kind of representing the Parkside Apartments, which is in that zone or Area 2. Yep. And a couple of things, I didn't see anything related to the sanitary sewer in that area on your slide. And the concern that I have is as follows. I see that you've got storm sewer, which is very important. We don't need to go through all those reasons and the conditions of the road and water and that sort of thing. But sanitary sewer, when the high school was reconstructed, this is going back quite some time. You mentioned there's water main issues and that sort of thing, but what happened on 10th Street is we started to experience a lot more issues with backup issues and just issues with the sanitary sewer. So I think it's something to do when this high school again was reconstructed, that there were additional sewer problems and a lot more backup issues. So we do as much as possible to do preventative measures to clear out those lines and everything else. But I think that would be an important component of the infrastructure, as long as you're already kind of tearing up other areas and that sort of thing. So I want to just put that as a concern. Okay. Then I think you also, in order to get these sidewalks started sooner, we partnered with the city to help pay for some of the sidewalks. And what happened is that, there's been some crackage and some issues with the sidewalks. And so we've been trying to get the vendor back to fix the concrete, like on the 10th Avenue sidewalk. And so we'll just want to keep kind of working with the city's assistance to figure out the best plan with, some of the issues that we've had on that sidewalk, which is, again, an important sidewalk that a lot of the people use for the high school and the ballparks and that sort of thing. And then one of the other things I just wanted to confirm, you talked about curb, and I think curb is incredibly important to ensuring the longevity of these roads. So it sounds like you are planning to put in concrete curb on all the roads that you mentioned. And I assume it's going to be concrete and on all the roads, because, like, for example, an asphalt curb is just not going to give the road the longevity it needs. Is that what you're thinking, Morgan, in the scope of work here?
Yes, and so I'm gonna hopefully Gage is on here right now to verify here, but all of the streets, so anything, we're not putting any bituminous curb back in. Okay. Now there is one rural roadway, which is Flanders, which I believe is pegged for no curb, because if we were to switch that from no curb to curb, that's a pretty substantial change in terms of disturbance of the area and kind of changing the character from a drainage standpoint. So for right now, that's the only one that I'm aware of that we're leaving kind of in a rural fashion, but I want Gage, who's my design engineer, to weigh in on that. Gage, can you verify what I'm talking about?
Yep. What you said was correct. 10th and 3rd Street have bituminous curb currently, but we'll be replacing those streets with concrete curb and gutter. And as far as Flanders goes, it might have some bituminous curb in small sections. And if that is the case, we would replace it as is, but there is no plan for concrete curb and gutter on Flanders right now.
Right, and another reason for, I think I see another question, a written curb for, what are the determiners for curb or no curb on Flanders? So Flanders is a part of our maintenance overlay program. So it's not intended to be a complete reset or redo on that roadway, although we needed to do a little bit more than we initially intended because there's just not enough roadway left to be able to overlay it, right? So it became a little bit more intensive in terms of what we need to do. But again, it's not intended to be a complete reset where we might add storm sewer and concrete curb and gutter on the edges and totally change that road characteristic from what it is today to something totally different. There's another question about where did I see that? The cul-de-sac at the end. Again, we can look at to see if we can do something there to maybe make it a little bit larger. However, again, we need to be very respectful about where the road is now and not kind of increasing that footprint too much or so much that it totally impacts somebody's yard or area or landscaping or other kind of items that might be off the edge of the road, knowing that the intent or what was ordered by the city council was kind of that maintenance overlay or just an extension of the pavement life, not a complete reconstruction or a reset on the roadway. So that goes to the character of Flanders, I guess. Hopefully I answered those questions. And I think that was Todd D. So certainly let me know, Todd, through the chat or otherwise, if that answered the question, okay, or if we need to revisit those. But that speaks to kind of the character on Flanders with respect to curb and gutter. And Stephanie, for the sanitary sewer, I'll mention that as a separate project, it makes more sense from a contracting standpoint to have sanitary sewer lining and rehabilitation improvements separate as a separate contract.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't need to be done at the same time.
No, and by a separate contractor, and we actually save money by having the specialty people that would do that separately as opposed to underneath like a paving contractor. And so we are going to be doing some sanitary sewer lining improvements. Now that's not full reconstruction or reset, but generally if there's tree issues or offset joint issues, minor offset joint issues within the main line, doing those sewer lining improvements in and around those areas will sometimes help or alleviate things, at least on the public end of the line. And I'm encouraged to hear that you've got a robust maintenance program on your private sewer line, because that's really, really important to keep on top of that, especially when you're talking apartments that have a higher wastewater flow than a typical residential property.
Yeah, and then that's really helpful. And it sounds like you guys are really very knowledgeable and on top of all of the storm drainage issues that surround that entire zone. So I'm not going to ask any questions about that. Again, in the interest of time, the last concern that I wanted to raise, and I don't think you're going to have any maybe answers for it right now because I don't know much about it, but you did mention that the school is planning an addition or an expansion, which is obviously very exciting for the community. The one concern that I do have, and this is a little bit related to roadways and traffic flow and all that kind of stuff, would just be that, you know, we've got a lot of people who because they don't want to wait when there's traffic during the school times, whether it's on, you know, Second and, you know, these different streets that, you know, they cut through what's now our like sort of private parking area, and it's
on the alley.
On the alley that's been vacated, and it's a little dangerous for the residents. And so I'm just thinking, you know, again, if the school is expanding, making sure we've got the infrastructure in place, sounds like you guys are fully thinking about the water main and that kind of stuff. But I think also just considerations related to the sanitary sewer system that already seems to have a little bit of stress in the area. if you've
Yep.
got an expansion, and then again, this is a separate discussion from the road improvements, but just how do we maintain safety during these peak driving hours, and how to, and that's safety for our children and our residents and everyone else. So I'll leave it at that, and thank
Right.
you for all the time.
And Stephanie, for all those apartments, if you're gonna be the main point of contact, if you wouldn't mind putting, your email address and maybe a cell phone number in the chat before you leave, so we can make a record of that. I think that'd be helpful, because I think we're gonna need to stay in touch, right? I did have a meeting today with the high school people today. We'll be having they will be having a pre-construction meeting with myself and Public Works. They expect to start doing some things in February even. That's just on their site, right? Not so much in the street there. But we can certainly make sure that they understand that it's now your alley, right? It's so that's off limits. They can't cut through. We'll make sure that our contractor knows that as well too. And then I think in terms of educating the residents of the apartments, I would encourage them to sign up for these updates to make sure that they're paying attention, and to really encourage their children to stay away from areas that are under construction. It's not like a play area. And from a driving and driving around standpoint, to observe barricades and not try to cut through and cut around things that might be temporarily blocked off. That's what we usually try to tell the public.
I'll reiterate, the residents that we've spoken to are very excited. They're residents of North St. Paul and members of the community, and they're very excited for the improvements. We were going to have more folks here today, but people are sick and there were a couple of conflicts. But I will relay all this information, and we'll be sure to post information exhaustively to make sure that we can keep it as safe as possible for everyone.
All
So
right,
thank you
appreciate
again,
that.
Morgan, and I'll get you my information. Thank you.
Appreciate that. And the city will keep talking to you about the sidewalks as well too. I'm aware of that situation.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so let's see. Todd, did I answer your questions on Flanders so far? I don't know if I can clear those out or not, but I don't know if Todd's still on or not. There's a question from Kim and Josh on special assessments. That's an excellent question. No, there are no special assessments to homeowners or property owners for these projects. So the city of North St. Paul did remove their special assessment policy in late 2019, I believe. And so moving forward, these types of projects do not have special assessments. Certainly the public is still paying for them, right? I mean, it's still paid for through general tax dollars, through utility funds for the utility components, right? So the water utility fund, which is, those are dollars that are funded through residents who are paying their water bills basically. And those are the funds that are used to repair and make improvements to the water system. That's just one example, but that's the way that we're paying for it. No longer is that component of funding for the streets special assessments where individual property owners might get a special assessment bill at the end of the project. So that's a good question. That is a new development, and I probably should have pointed that out in my presentation. Adam has a question about additional access issues for those that have driveways or garages along the parking lot on 5th Avenue and 6th Avenue. So just like I mentioned before, the contractor is going to need to know that you folks are going to need to be able to get in and out just like anybody else, even though you're not on a street, you're kind of on a, if you want to call that a alley, that east-west alley on the south side of the parking lot, to be able to get in and out. So we will cover that with the contractor. We are planning to repave that area. So just like, a roadway adjacent to the garage or to your driveways, we are going to, improve that public portion of that alley or that shared driveway, if you want to call it that, for all those lots that are along there. And there might be a time where you can't get in and out, just on that day that they're paving or just on that day where they're removing the old pavement. and we'll have to pay attention to if there is any concrete work. I don't know if there is specific to your property or not, but not additional access issues, only similar access concerns as anyone else on the project. But I'm glad that you brought that up. It looks like Gage is maybe typing some more specific information for you in the Q&A right now. Karen asked a question about 14th Avenue. And will work consist of overlayment replacement only, or will it also involve curb replacement? And on 14th Avenue, that's that cul-de-sac to cul-de-sac piece there. And so what we do is if there's a failed piece of curb or a or a settlement or not necessarily every crack needs to be replaced, but we do evaluate it on a case-by-case basis. So we replace the pieces of curb that need to be replaced in a budget and cost-conscious fashion. So we don't want to replace everything if we don't have to. A lot of that curb sometimes has some life left in it, and we will leave the pieces that we can leave, and we will go in and we'll remove and replace, re-pour the pieces that need to be replaced. So hopefully that answers your question on 14th Avenue. Let's see, let me go back to the chat. Well, there's a question about street lighting on 13th and 14th. Dimly lit, the perception is that it's unsafe. So right now I'm not aware of any street lighting improvements on 13th and 14th. We have had similar comments on past projects. And so I'm glad that you mentioned something. Sometimes the electric department will take these comments under consideration and actually make some improvements, whether that's changing the lights around. Sometimes the lights are changed to LED lighting, which can provide some additional lighting as well too. So I will have the electric director take note of your comment and see if he can look into whether that makes sense or not. I can't promise anything, but it has happened before where we have made some lighting improvements associated with these projects. I did mention the parking lot will get some new lights as well too. But I'll have him take a look at your neighborhood, Kathy. And then also she asked, will you be widening 13th west to the target pond or west of the target pond? There's no plan to widen the roadway right now and no plans to add a pedestrian facility on 13th at this time. But I'm going to take your comment though, and we'll take a look at it. If there is an opportunity to provide any sort of additional width, we certainly can, but we need to operate within the confines of, again, kind of this maintenance improvement, which is limited expenditure, really targeted at trying to provide some additional life for the roadway and not a complete kind of reconfiguration or widening or addition of pedestrian facilities, for example. I agree. Excellent questions. Thank you so much. There's another question about dust control measures. I thought I saw Gage type in a question. Did we get that one answered, Gage, about dust control, or should I cover that?
I might have just sent it to us on accident, but yeah, basically we include measures to provide dust control, especially during the dry times of construction, and we use water to kind of keep it down. So
right,
I think maybe I answered a couple of these and I only sent it to us, so my mistake
we did
there.
Yeah, and that's a good point, that we can't prevent it from being dusty in every instance. But we will listen to folks. Sometimes, the water dries up and the water needs to be reapplied by the contractor. And we do have the ability to put something a little bit more robust down on the road that it's called calcium chloride. It actually is commonly used for dust control on roads before they're paved. And if we need to use that, we certainly will. And we try to do the best we can, but sometimes I'll get a call saying that, hey, it's getting a little dusty here. Can you make sure you squirt it again? And we'll call the contractor and make sure that they do that. So sometimes it's a day by day ongoing process. And so try to be as patient as you can and know that we can't make it dust free in all instances, but we do have dust control measures as a part of the contract that we'll try to bring to bear as best we can to make it as reasonable as we possibly can. There's a question about wild consideration for wildlife, specifically turtles that cross 13th by the Environmental Learning Center and pond. We have made some accommodations in some instances for wildlife. The concern that usually comes up with turtles is not having them trapped behind barrier curbs so that when they're laying eggs and migrating around during certain times of the year, they don't get stuck. And I know it's kind of street by street and it's very specific. So if 13th Avenue is a location that we need to look at, I would like more information about really exactly where. And if there's something we can do, like if there's a piece of curb replacement there that we can provide a little depression, that's really easy and it doesn't cost the city any extra money as long as we can do it in a way that doesn't, compromise the road at all. So if you can provide the city project team with a little bit more specific information about exactly where the turtles are, we'll take a look and see if we can take care of the turtles. I'm certainly open to that. I might have gotten all of them. Does anybody have any other questions?
Morgan, we have some hands raised still that I'm going to give
Oh.
people access.
Yeah, absolutely. I was clicked on a different window there. Yeah, please. So how about Denise? I answered some of the Fellings questions and we spoke to Bruce. We'll get to you guys in 1 second. How about Denise?
Hi, thank you for taking my question. In area 1, you said that you guys are going to redo the parking lot over there behind where that catering company used to be. How far over are you going with that parking lot? Is it going to encompass the entire public parking back there?
Yes, the whole parking lot and the alleyway, the angled alley that's on the back of the buildings that front on 7th Avenue. Up until the point where the kind of the public alley right of way goes away.
Yeah.
So there's the building I own is 2570. It's right there on the corner. You'd think of it as between Sandy Sewing and the old TikTok. I have that's my that parking lot belongs to my building, but it's become a main thoroughfare of the city. And I was wondering if that could be added to the project with speed bumps so people don't come flying through there all the time. It's very unsafe there.
We can take a look at that. I will tell you right now that usually speed bumps are not the best answer because they can create problems with respect to snow removal, which the city is responsible for removing the snow back there. It also damages equipment, and it can, even though people are supposed to slow down, if they're not paying attention, it can also cause a damage liability for the city too.
So that parking lot, I actually pay to plow the parking lot, my parking lot.
Oh, your parking lot. You're okay.
Because,
So
yeah, here's the situation is it's like during the car shows, we block it off that you can't park there, but people still park there. But the driving back and through every day, all day, it's, it's a main access to that public parking in the back and then out to 7th Avenue. And it's just tore up and it's way past its life. So maybe we could, I mean, I tried to call and I never heard back from anybody. Maybe we could just meet out there and talk about it.
I think that's best. Let's do that, this winter now, and we'll, I'd be happy to meet you out there and take a look at it with our engineer, and, Ron from Public Works can come along. Maybe if you wouldn't mind putting your, best phone number in the chat bar there. And,
all right, nobody else keep it though. Everybody else needs to ignore it.
I'll just send an email with it.
Yeah, I'll put my name in the chat.
Yeah, you can just email the same email that we put up at the front end here.
Got it. Projects at northstpaul.org. I got it.
Yeah, there you go. I just put it up on the screen. You can send your contact information there. And I don't monitor that email, but if you can just say, hey, can you forward this to Morgan so I can set up a meeting? I'll get in touch with you there.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Denise,
No
what
done.
was
problem.
that address?
What was that, Veronica?
What was that address for the?
2570 7th Avenue East.
Thank you.
It's through 76, where it's Sandy Sewing, between Sandy Sewing and the TikTok, which is no longer there.
Sandy Sewing.
Got it.
Yeah, Sandy Sewing's mine and TikTok's not mine.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you, Denise. Let's see, how about the fellings? I answered some of your written questions, but yeah, please feel free if we can unmute the fellings if you want to ask a question.
Hello, can you hear us, Morgan?
I absolutely can, thank you.
Good. Yeah, we just quickly to add about the wildlife turtles, and you hit it. Thank you for hitting that migration period. They come from the south side over across 13th to the north side and usually lay eggs in one of our yards. But
All the yards on the north side of 13th, the ball field up at the church, everything on the north side of the pond
it's where they
has
lay eggs.
appeared in the last 15 years that we've lived here, has had a migratory pattern of some sort, being at the painted turtles or the snapping turtles.
Mhm.
And some seasons are heavier than others for the activity on the road.
Mhm.
And the migration. So that was the concern. Between mid-May and mid-June seems to be the peak of the activity for the turtles on their hatching or their egg laying process.
Mhm.
So
So just a
if the road
consideration
becomes gravel, the turtles may stop
and bury
in
eggs.
the
Oh.
road.
You know what? I've actually seen that happen. And so that can happen. What
And then
we'll just need to be careful around the turtles. I mean,
the small
Go ahead.
turtles that migrate are sometimes cooked on the pavement because of the curbing that was constructed.
We can't get up over
And
it. Yeah.
it's a 90-degree curb, and
Right.
and a lot
So-
of the neighbors have helped some of them. A lot of them get squished. A lot of them get cooked because of the heat.
yeah.
So
Well,
Why not- Yeah.
what I'd encourage you guys to do is that when we get closer to the project is to reach out to one of our construction observers and let's take a look at it out there with you guys. I mean, it might
Okay.
actually be right during kind of the right season, so we can see what's going on. I can't make any guarantees, but it might be possible that we could make some accommodations.
Right.
Again, especially if there is a couple sections of bad curb anyway in that area, we could put those, replace those with more of a surmountable curb, just a short section. But the turtles will typically kind of follow the barrier curb along until they hit a driveway or they hit a section that they can get up. So that's pretty easy to do. And a lot of times
Yeah.
that provides some peace of mind to the people that live out there so they don't have to look at turtles getting cooked and squashed. I understand that's concerning. So we'll see what we can do. I can't promise you anything, but
Yeah, we definitely have wildlife here, deer and one fox, and it's good to see.
And the
But
possum and a few other things.
yeah,
That,
so.
yeah.
Hey, Morgan, one other questions from the fellings we had is, if the lot survey markers are disturbed,
Yep.
will they be replaced or
Yes.
noted, or how will that
Yes.
happen?
Well, so if they shouldn't be disturbed for this type of project, what street are you guys are on 13th? I mean,
13th, yeah.
that's pretty far back from the road for this type of a project to actually get into them. But if we do have them on our survey, like we've surveyed them and they do get disturbed, we will replace them because we've got a recording of the actual location of it.
Yep.
If you are concerned, if it's something that you paid a surveyor to put in like not too long ago and you want to make sure that they're preserved, I'd ask that you mark them with a stake or mark them with a flag or something so that we can either take care around them, or just like a sprinkler system or a dog fence,
Yeah.
if we know that it's there, we can just be extra careful that nothing happens. Or if it's gonna happen, we can make sure we pick it up with some survey equipment so we can replace it when it's done.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
thank you.
concern was if there's any electrical repair or anything, because
Underground.
everything's underground along there. And then, you addressed the dust issue pretty good, but on the weekends if they're not working on Saturdays and Sundays, is there going to be a number available for, excessive amount of dust?
We'll just have to monitor that. So when it's 96 degrees out and, the water's going to be gone, we might need the calcium chloride on Friday to get through the weekend. When it's cooler out, like in the fall or in the spring, and we also don't know if we're going to get a little bit of light rain that's going to hold the dust down too, right? So, I mean, again, I would just ask for your and everyone's patience to try to keep it within reason, knowing that we're not going to be able to make it a completely dust-free environment. And, it's going to be difficult, I'll be honest, for us to try to get a contractor to come out on a Sunday to squirt the road. But I'm not going to rule it out. If it's just really egregious, I want to know about it, and I'm going to let the contractor know about it, because the expectation is we're going to be keeping things generally within reason. And if we need to move into consecutive weekends, knowing that it was a little bit difficult through the last weekend, so we need to take some extra care and use calcium chloride, for example, I'm all for that. So you'll just have to work with us, and I just try to be patient as much as you can, knowing that we can't make it perfect because it will be a road under construction, but we'll do the best we can.
Right, I appreciate that. It's just, something I wanted to put out there for consideration.
Thank
Sure,
you.
sure.
Thank you,
That's-
Morgan.
Thank you.
That's no problem. Stay in touch, guys. Looks like Bruce, who we started with, might have another question.
No, I didn't ask for.
Oh, your hand is still up then. Okay,
Oh,
sorry then. So I think maybe then that Carrie takes care of the hands that are up.
That's correct, Morgan.
Do we have any other? So Karen just typed a little bit, another additional thing there about 13th Avenue about no parking. So I'll take a look at that, Karen. But again, I think for 13th being a part of the maintenance overlay program, we'll probably very likely stick with the existing widths and the existing character. But I will take a look at that, and I appreciate the comment. Yeah, and I think that might have gotten us through everything. So for those of you that stuck it out, we do have a short entertaining video for you to end your evening with. You don't have to stick around for this, but it's about 5 minutes long. I'm going to start it up here. I really want to thank everyone for their time and attention. We know everybody's got a busy schedule and sometimes tough with different things that are going on in the world right now. So really appreciate your engagement. This is just the beginning. We'll very likely have some more information coming out as we get closer to the project. So stay tuned, watch your mail. Certainly look for opportunities for future updates as we get through the construction process. And again, thank you for taking this opportunity to learn more about the project. We'll try to keep it an open door, an open conduit for communication back and forth. Don't hold back. The more information that we know, especially if it's proactive, like ahead of time, like ahead of a graduation party or ahead of a special event or ahead of a special delivery that you have going on, we can definitely do a lot as far as making accommodations. So I just encourage you to communicate, over communicate. The more we know, the better job we can do to try to take care of people and try to avoid kind of complaints or concerns or things that might be not ideal. So with that, I'm going to start the video. Again, thank you. You can log off if you got things you got to do, but I appreciate your time. And for city staff, certainly my staff, engineering staff, please hang on the line for afterwards. And I just want to have a quick debrief after the public is kind of logged off here, if you don't mind. Thank you. We'll start the video.
You're watching LMCC. Ah, what a beautiful day in Anytown, USA. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, and the people are, peopling. Huh? Well, it looks like Anytown's inquisitive neighbor, Chuck Busybody, is working on a home improvement project. Let's say hello. Hey Chuck, what are you up to? Yes, it looks like your street is scheduled for reconstruction this summer. Chuck, what are you doing? You should really let the city... Wait, is that a jackhammer? I don't think that was the best idea, busybody. You should really leave the construction work to the professionals. Calm down, Chuck. Yes, the street reconstruction process can be confusing, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions. You may wonder, how long will this take? What will I see? What will I hear? Why are there tiny flags in my lawn? What happened to my mailbox? And how do I get my hands on a cool hard hat and safety vest? Well, never fear, busybody. I have the answers you're looking for. Let me tell you a story. Street reconstruction is an inconvenient yet necessary process that begins many years before any work is done. Your city will determine which streets and utilities will be replaced 5 years in advance. Early in the process, neighborhood residents and businesses are invited to a meeting to learn about the project and are encouraged to provide feedback to the city. Once the project is approved by the city council, survey crews will be on site during the fall, the year before street reconstruction begins. There they will gather data to create construction plans to help guide the project through to completion. The following spring, the city council will select a contractor and then create a preliminary construction schedule that will be shared with property owners. Are you following along so far, Chuck? Not really. Perhaps you should take some notes. That's better. During pre-construction, survey crews and private utility companies stake and flag the project area. This is done so that crews know where things are located during construction. Temporary mailboxes may need to be installed just outside of the work area during a total street reconstruction. The post office will decide the date and location of the move. The project contractor will notify impacted homeowners when this is scheduled to be done. Additional prep work involves utility companies using excavation equipment to make repairs and improvements to existing utilities such as cable, electric, and natural gas. Saw cutting of driveways will take place during the pre-construction period as well. In addition, diseased trees or trees in the right-of-way will need to be removed prior to the start of the project. What was that, busybody? I don't think the crew needs your help removing trees, right guys? That's what I thought. Chuck? Never mind. The first step in the road reconstruction process is reclaiming the street's existing asphalt. The surface material is ground and mixed with the current gravel base to create a new foundation for the asphalt surface. After the asphalt is removed, residents should still have access to their homes and driveways. But please keep in mind that the roadway will be a bit dusty and bumpy at this point in the project. Next, temporary water lines will be connected to homes throughout the project area, causing periodic water main shutdowns. The lines will look like a garden hose and will be tested frequently so that it is safe to drink. During a total street reconstruction, existing sewer and water mains will be repaired, removed, and replaced. Crews will replace pipes connecting each property to the sanitary sewer and water main in the street. Once water mains are replaced, storm sewer installation begins in areas needing drainage improvements. The city will also dig out and replace any old manholes and catch basins during this phase of construction. After utility work is done, new concrete curb and gutter is installed. Any damaged or removed driveway aprons are also replaced at this time. This may limit access to driveways for up to a week, but residents will still be able to park near their homes. Once these stages of construction are complete, the first layer of asphalt is placed, and the road begins to take shape. Crews will do their best to keep the roads open during the paving process. The boulevard restoration process begins after the initial paving. Crews will install organically rich topsoil and sod along the curb line. Landscaping repairs are also done at this time. The last stage of construction is the installation of the final layer of asphalt. However, the final layer is most often paved in the spring in anticipation of road settlement. While living in the project area can be frustrating at times, I hope this summary gives you a better understanding of the process. Be sure to stay informed and sign up for weekly email updates from your city. Making sense now, busybody? Excellent! Now you're coming up, aces! That's right, Chuck. Unforeseen surprises can and will cause delays at the construction site. The biggest culprit is severe weather. Clear skies can turn dark quickly, bringing work to a grinding halt. Additional time can be lost waiting for the street materials to dry or work having to be redone. Other project delays can be caused by equipment breakdowns, poor soils, and unexpected archaeological finds. Wait, is that the Ark of the Covenant? Well, busybody, I hope you have a better understanding of the street reconstruction process. Great! Oh, that's a very nice gift basket. For me? Perhaps the crew would like it. No. Why don't you hold on to it for right now, Chuck? The guys will pick it up later. Well, my work is done here. See you later, Chuck, and good day to everyone in Anytown, USA.
All right, well, that was just a little bit of entertainment there for everybody. So hopefully you enjoyed the presentation, got some information. Stay tuned for more information, and please stay in touch throughout the project. So thank you very, very much, everybody who attended, city staff, all the panelists, and really, really appreciate your time. So thank you again, everyone. All right.